I was away on business travel, and one of the worst things as a business owner happened. We had a client issue, but the great thing was that I didn't have to deal with it. And if you're a business owner that struggles with being able to get away, to be able to travel and get away from the business completely because clients are always coming to you on things, this video is one that you need to watch because I'm going to step through what happened and how it was able to be solved without me being involved. And that totally rhymed. But anyways, so we had a client that got a construction virtual assistant from us, and they started, actually they had one day with them and they did all this training the first day, and then the next day that virtual assistant lets us know that, hey, I've got some personal things going on, I can't work anymore. Yeah, pretty annoying, and unfortunately we see that happening now in the virtual assistant world. That happens with people in the States, so for some reason people are just being people and really sucking at the end of the day. So my ops manager, she let me know what was going on, which I really appreciate that, but right away I'm like, okay, I've got to figure things out, and I started asking questions, and then she tells me, well, hey, what I'm doing right now is we're going back to the old applicants that this client had interviewed with to see if they're still available. I'm also going to talk with our internal team to see who has some capacity to help fill in the gaps while we go find somebody else to replace them if the client doesn't want to go with one of the other applicants that he originally didn't go with. And that was exactly what I was going to do. That's exactly what I would do if I was in that situation too. But she already had the plan in place. And then of course after that, she reached out to our client, told him the situation, he understood, and he decided he wanted to go with that other applicant that was available and got started, and unfortunately had to restart the next day with onboarding and everything. But that's the story, and how we got to this point, or how I got to this point with the ops manager, is that I trained her over time. I trusted her to be able to make decisions, and as I made decisions on things and we worked through those situations, one, she paid attention to what I did, so she knew how to replicate that. Two, I empowered her to be able to work on these things and not bother me with some of these things. So what she did and how I've trained her up was to inform me of what's going on and then give me solutions. Say, this is what we're working through, and then I was able to give feedback like, yeah, that's exactly right, that's what I would do as well, so let's go ahead and move with that. And then she was able to keep taking the reins, letting me be in on the situation to know what's going on, so I'm not blindsided if the client decides to reach out to me directly as the business owner. But she was able to go on and do that. And again, this was training and talking through things as well, which is really I would say the third thing is that as we had different situations come up, we talk about what those things could be, how we would handle those. And when I first was encountering these situations, and as she was stepping into the ops manager role, I was still handling it, and that's understandable. She's still trying to figure it out. I'm the owner, the buck stops with me. But when the situations would come up, I would help figure out the solution, and then we would get back together and talk about that. Okay, and we'd say, this was what we came up with. Like, did you have any ideas of what other ways we could have done it? And then I would also explain why I did it this exact way, and so that way she understood the methodology and the thought process behind why I did that. And too often as business owners, when we bring people on the team, they just become another weight on the payroll. They just become somebody that's just a task doer and not a task initiator, because you don't take that time initially to work with them. Unfortunately, we want somebody to take things off our plate right away, and then because we never train them up, we never teach them our methodology, how things should work, how they should react to situations, they're not able to actually take that off our plate. So then we are still involved. So if you want to get yourself out of that, first of all, you have to show your team member what it's like in those situations, or try and find situations. Hopefully you don't have to deal with client situations like we did this week, but you're gonna have situations that come up and you can talk through that, or you can talk through hypothetical situations of what happens if a client does this, or there's a project and there's an issue, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna refund them? Are we gonna try and make it better? Are we gonna maybe give them a little upgrade to keep the customer satisfied? Those are things you have to think through and talk with your ops manager or your project coordinator whoever is going to be in those positions to make those decisions, especially while you're out traveling. The second thing is continuing to build that trust with them, continuing to show them that you trust them, because a lot of people want to make the decision. They want to take things off your plate. And I've seen that with all of my team members. They want to do things and help out, but when they don't feel like I trust them enough, or they don't feel like they're secure in their job and that if they make the wrong decision that they're going to be backed and supported by me, that's when they're not going to make that decision. That's when they're going to fall back on, well, Philip's got to figure it out. You as the business owner are going to have to figure it out. But when they know that you have their back to make a decision, whether it's the decision you would make or whether it's a decision that isn't right in general, but they made a decision, if you're not going to back them up on that decision and then look at it as a lessons learned later, they're not going to make decisions. So you've got to make sure that you empower them and show them that you trust them. And then the third thing is reviewing with them after something happens, after they make a decision, and talking about the good things that they did. And I always like to use the sandwich method. So talk about some good things, talk about some things they can work on or improve, or if it really was that catastrophic, talk about, okay, this went really bad, it went south, this needs to be fixed immediately, and then come back with some compliments. But and I always end with like, but look, I really appreciate that you tried, that you really worked, and I understand the why you went down this route. And I'm always trying to figure out and understand their decision, but then also, the sandwich compliment cookie, and good, negative, good in the end. And that's how I empower my team, so that way when I'm traveling, which as I'm recording right now, I'm in Bratislava, Slovakia, and I didn't have to deal with that client situation because I empowered my team. So if you feel like you can't go on vacation, you feel like you can't get away from the business, it's because you haven't become the leader that you need to be. And you haven't put the systems in place in order to be able to have those decisions made in a very simple manner while you're out of town, out of the country, whatever. And so if you want to see more and learn more about these things, I talk about this all the time on my YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe so you can be up to date on the latest things that I give of real world examples to help you become the leader that you need to be in your construction business.